40 years ago, a train with just one carriage was waiting at a country railway station in Sussex. The place was almost deserted, except for a station cat and the man in the booking office. Passengers were few and far between.
Ticket to Sheffield Park, please.
Certainly, sir. Single or return?
Single, please.
Thank you, sir. Be £3, please, sir. Thank you very much.
It was closure day. Branch lines had to be axed to stop the railways losing a fortune. The age of the motoring masses had begun, so who needed primitive 19th century kettles on wheels? But not everyone was prepared to see the little train disappear forever. And it was here, 40 years ago, on a route known locally as the Bluebell Line, that a living museum was born. Some very determined railway lovers had decided there would be life after death for steam. And soon there were branches all over southern England. Like on the Isle of Wight, for instance. People who travel by fast catamaran from Portsmouth to the island are in for a surprise or two. The tube trains on Ryde Pier are wartime London Underground stock that retired to the seaside. Then there are the Isle of Wight beach huts that look strangely like railway carriages. And that's because 100 years ago they were. One by one, they're being turned back into the kind of coaches Queen Victoria used. Steam has returned in the shape of the Isle of Wight Steam Railway.
As these four-wheelers were withdrawn from service, the bodies were actually sold off. Although the underframes were scrapped, the bodies were preserved as beach huts, chalets, chicken coops, farm outbuildings, whatever you care to think of.
Volunteers scoured the island for relics and took them to a safe haven. It happens to be called Haven Street. They didn't have much money or backing, but what they did have was a dream. And they were not prepared to rest until they'd conquered a mountain made of rust.
Originally, it's sort of because you want to see the things back together and usable. What was a beautiful piece of craftsmanship when it was originally built is now just sort of derelict chicken out. And it's nice to sort of see these things back as they were.
The little engines that once worked on the Isle of Wight were recovered from various resting places on the mainland and shipped across the Solent. Whole families of islanders rallied round to make the railway viable again. People like Ken and Margaret West, and their daughter and son-in-law, Liz and Chris. Mr. West was an engine man with British Rail for half a century. The family's practical knowledge of the island has been put to good use.
I'm a guard, the only female guard I'll add, and I'm responsible for the train, and the train doesn't move unless I say it can. So I'm in charge of him, and if I can leave him behind occasionally I do try to, but I've never achieved it yet. And I'm also in charge of the footplate crew to a certain extent, because they can't go without me. So
she's a stickler for timing, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
She always tells me I'm late.
Yes.
Stick the pump on, Martin, please. Some people look at me sometimes and say he's a legend sort of in it, you know. I started on the railway at Newport as an engine cleaner in July 1944. You know, done 49 and a half years for British Rail, and retirement kind of meets boredom. I retired in the October, and from the October to Christmas was terrible. I did know really bad. So anyway, I got the opportunity to come out here, and since then I've never looked back. I'm all in the crack rods. This is done every day. Everything where there's a bearing or any metal rubbing together, everything's got to be lubricated and oiled once a day, out here once a day. Possibly wouldn't be our days, it could have been twice a day. This line of water out the main res. What's been still all night from water accumulated. That's how your brakes work freer. That's a pump. West needs pump. That's what works the brakes. 2 cylinders, steam, air. Pumps air into the reservoir, and then when you apply the brakes up there, releases the air out of the brake cylinder. Brake valve goes in the corner, slipper. Releases air out of the cylinder through the triple valve into the brake cylinder and applies the brakes. Our nation is all done. Done the underneath first, and then with a bit of luck, should run all day with no problems whatsoever. I hadn't seen or been on a steam locomotive for 25 years. I come here in the morning, I lift her up, went out far in the wind. I hadn't gone 100 yards up that bank, and everything come back to you. Everything, the movement, the atmosphere, the noise. And 25 years is a long time. Of course, I was worried all the time I wasn't going to make the grade again, but especially with my age and that. But honestly, it just comes to you, and that's it. Now, I felt like a kid of 20, now I'm nearly 70.
The railway is only a few miles away from the South Coast's biggest cities. But it's in a different world, tucked away in a fold in the hills. Mainlanders don't seem to know it's there.
We have one big problem here, and that is that because we're on an island, a lot of people don't realise how easy it is to get here from anywhere along the south coast, indeed from London, for a day via the train services to Portsmouth Harbour, the catamaran across to Ryde, and the few minutes journey from Ryde Pierhead on the electric railway to Smallbrook. You're here. Somehow this offshore island off the south coast of England has retained 2 railways, not 1 but 2. The electric railway between Ryde and Shanklin using vintage rolling stock, and us between Smallbrook and Wootton running even older rolling stock.
This engine was built 120 years ago at Brighton for Victorian commuters and became famous as the Hailing Billy. It was laid to rest on a plinth outside a pub. But now it's back on the rails with a brand new boiler and probably hasn't been in better condition for a century.
There was a little nucleus of these locomotives at Fratton Shed in Portsmouth right up to the last. 2 of them survived, one as a pub sign on Hailing Island, and the other one that we've got back came from Butlins holiday camp at Pwllheli, North Wales, where it was on a plinth. And in both cases we successfully returned them to the island and put them both back into traffic.
Few people have a shorter walk to work than Kim Chalkley, a retired railway craftsman who acts as a volunteer guard. Once he worked in an industry that employed 1 million people, and he remains part of the railway family.
Living next to a railway is very good because you don't have to go to work anywhere. You go out the back gate and you're there.
There are no wages for the workers. It's a labour of love.
Morning.
sometimes it does get a bit of a pain. You know, you get the old smoke in the garden and the wife moaning about the soot in the washing and, you know, but even that, we put up with that, we're quite happy, you know.
There's always a shortage of helpers, so Pete, the carriage restorer, can sometimes be found working as a fireman. Chris, the ticket collector, washes the carriages and does a dozen other jobs too. And Kim is there to couple up the trains, and not just on this railway.
You're going to laugh at this, I know you are, because to get away from this railway, I go to 3 other railways and do the same thing.
And there are plenty more in southern England to choose from.
So many advanced moisturisers, but only one has the Johnson's touch. Lucy introduces pH 5.5 Healthy Difference Cream. Its advanced formula contains pure, active vitamin A, but with the Johnson's touch. For a radiance we can see and a healthy difference everyone can feel. New pH 5.5 Healthy Difference Cream. Healthy skin is pH 5.5. We're all pH 5.5.
The man who lives here is lucky that he's got a watchful neighbour, because one day returning his secateurs, she sensed that something was wrong. Horrified by what she saw, a threadbare tan sofa, she took the man straight to courts
and stayed with him while he chose a great value settee with up to 5 years interest-free credit, free for a year.
Next week, a couple visually assaulted by orange curtains and a floral carpet. Courts, take it easy.
People have always been drawn to Swanage, a classic English holiday resort. And there are plenty of places inland to explore as well, like Corfe Castle. But there's a catch. The picture postcard villages of Thomas Hardy's Wessex weren't built for the motorcar. And even when you do manage to fight your way through to the seaside, will you find somewhere to park in Swanage? Purbeck's answer is to let the train take the strain. What must be Britain's most elegant park and ride scheme delivers 1/8 million people to the seaside, minus their cars, in style. A once disused railway has found a new purpose.
The railway runs from Swanage to Norden, which is a distance of approximately 6 miles, and it goes through the historic village of Corfe Castle, which I think is the 6th most visited National Trust monument, the old ruins there. It's quite a dramatic location, and in the jargon, it's the Swanage Railway is now a somewhere to somewhere railway, from a pleasant seaside resort to the National Trust monument of Corfe. And then just beyond Corfe, on the Wareham side, is the Norden Park and Ride interchange, and people coming into Purbeck can park their cars there and then get on the train to go to Corfe and Swanage.
There are benefits all round. Less pressure on the roads and less impact on nature. The wildlife seems at peace with the idea of a little railway, and the livestock takes no notice of the passing trains.
It is very important for the future around here to keep the greenery and to minimise the effect of traffic. It's good for the economy too. We do create jobs and we bring a lot more people into Swanage in particular in an environmentally friendly way.
The key to this brand new, old-fashioned transport system is the lack of a big wage bill. Most people work on the railway for the fun of it.
Volunteers are the lifeblood of the preserved railways in this part of the country and everywhere. Actually driving and firing the locomotives is not the difficult bit, because that's something everyone wants to do. It's signalling staff. that we need. It's ticket inspectors and collectors and sellers that we need. It's guards that we need. It's people who look after the permanent way, that's the track itself, and keep the line side clear that we need. It's the less glamorous tasks that there's always an acute shortage of volunteers to undertake.
Pride of the fleet is an engine that really did once pull the Golden Arrow. Railwaymen still remember the day when steam died.
Steam disappeared overnight. It's a thing that we didn't really believe. We didn't think that steam could finish like that. We thought, no, they must. But now, on that day, that was it. Every engine the fire was thrown out when it went to shed. And we never saw them anymore, not to work on them, until they were towed away.
The last thing Stan expected was that he'd spend his retirement driving steam engines from Swanage again, in his favourite hat.
Hi, Stan. All right, then. How are you doing? Yeah, all right. Right, sir. Yeah, I thought you were going to give me a £5 note.
I haven't got a £5.
I'm opening the regulator now, allowing steam into the cylinders. I keep a careful watch on the amount of steam I'm allowing into the cylinders, so as not to allow the engine to slip. The essential part about starting a train is the fear with the West Country or a merchant navy that the engine might slip. So you've got to be prepared for that, and you've got to go away gently. You've got to start any train very gently. There is a bond of friendship that can extend the whole of your railway career. You get with drivers and you're working together. It's a team. I mean, neither of you can do your work without the other. Well, we're now approaching Harmich Cross Station, which is on the upgrade, so I'm allowing her to coast into the platform. I now gently apply the brake.
It's all so gentle. Clearly the man at the controls has done this before.
Only once or twice.
As the Swanage Railway goes from strength to strength, transport planners are beginning to wonder if history has come full circle.
Swanage and Corfe Castle, I think, would be subject to even worse depredations of the motor car if the railway were not there. It's a pity that this hasn't happened in other parts of the country. But it is very important for the future around here to keep the greenery and to minimise the effect of traffic.
Unlike Corfe Castle, some ruins can be rebuilt. As if by magic, a mechanical miracle moves under its own steam for the first time since the 60s. The men who rebuilt it are at the controls. It's becoming commonplace to see born-again steam locos emerging from workshops, like this one at Didcot.
It's sort of like bringing something back from the grave, really. It's, you know, you think, well, when I left the railway, many years ago off the footplate. You thought you'd never ever get the chance of doing this again.
But he did. Peter Gransden was helped by an engineering undergraduate called Ed Freeman.
Nobody had done anything on it for 20 years, and it was one of the last ones that we had here to restore from scrapyard condition. And I found this huge heap of parts that had filled up nearly the entire shed with parts, and I decided that we had all the bits. I decided why not put some of them back on there, and we started and got carried away.
Getting carried away with railways is something Frank Dumbleton knows all about. He was just a schoolboy when the Great Western engines that ran through Reading and Newbury were being scrapped. The teenagers couldn't bear to see the back of the tank engines that ran on their local line. One was saved by their pocket money and public subscription. Suddenly, the school kids owned an engine.
It was delivered to Totnes in April 1964 in steam, and the railway crew just walked away from it and left us to it. And a few days later, 4 of us went down from London to see the engine. We were going to clean it, and then we said, well, why don't we light it up and play with it? And so we got a few bits of paper and wood and put them in the firebox, and somebody said, who's got the matches? And nobody had any matches, so we had to go off to a shop and buy matches, and then we lit it up and got steam up and pulled the whistle, and suddenly people came running from all over the place when they heard the whistle. So that was how it started in those days.
Since then, the Great Western Society has gone on to bigger things. An express engine of the Castle class is prepared for a test run after an 8-year rebuild. Its emergence from the workshop leaves room for yet another basket case. This rust bucket may look like Mission Impossible, but they'll make it good as new.
Have to wait for the right away from the garden, eh? Right away, Carl. Right away. Pull back in. Another toot on the whistle. And off we go.
The rebuilt Castle sets off for a canter at Didcot Steam Centre and gives an insight into the working lives of engine men. Imagine hurtling through the darkness at 100 miles an hour on a winter's night.
It was withdrawn from traffic 1st of January 1990, since when it's undergone a fairly extensive and expensive overhaul. And today, as you see it, is the end product, and it's on its first public open day back in traffic. A Castle on a regular working would achieve 100 mile an hour quite happily. They were more suited to the 70s and 80s than that. But along the Great Western Main Line, which is through here at Didcot and that, it's dead flat and they can easily race along there.
For the moment, the engine is a caged tiger, fenced off from the main line.
Gently touching the brakes now. Easing into the platform. There we are, back again.
Back again. Engine number 5051 joins scores of other locomotives herded together in the steam zoos around the country, including express heavyweights like King Edward I. The one thing their keepers want is to help them escape onto the main line. And sometimes they do escape. The King went on a royal progress up north.
Southern Steam continues at the same time, 6:30, next Thursday.